Welcome to the Path Podcast. It's March 8th. I'm Tani. I'm here with Auk, and today we have some special guests, Erik and Erin. Erik and Erin are ambassadors for the Path, and they recently rode their bikes around Catalina Island, which is something I'm really curious about and kind of a fantasy of mine, so I'm really excited to hear about it. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Stoked to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm stoked to be here too. I wasn't here for the last podcast, so it's good to be back, and it's great to have you on.
Yeah, this is like going to be transformative for me because I've listened to I think all of them, and I think because of that I might have both of you like sort of as like a side narrative in my head, and now I'm kind of like in the narrative that's already in my head.
Oh, I like that. I have side. I might even have you sometimes as a side narrative in my head.
Wait,
Far
do we sound the same in person as we do on the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that means your sound editing is on point.
Sweet.
Thank you, Jake. So we usually get started with a little bit of shop news, and then kind of roll into the podcast and talk story.
Nice. We have some demo days coming up. Pivot Demo Day, March 18th, San Clemente at the Richard Steed Memorial Park, a.k.a. the Dog Park. Reservations required.
Great.
E-bike friendly, muscle bike friendly,
They're going to have the shuttle and the
Shuttle SL.
shuttle SL there too?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. And if you reserve it.
Yeah, worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Very next day, transition demo, same place. First come, first serve. No reservations.
Ooh. So that one's from 10 to 4, so maybe you could show up, get a ride in beforehand, and show up early and get in line.
Yeah.
Man, a lot of demos at San Clemente these days.
Yeah.
We learned how to get a permit.
Nice.
Nice. That transition one is, like, talk about tempting. Their lineup right now is amazing.
You're talking about the relay.
Well, yeah, and just even the the new Smuggler is amazing, and obviously the Spur. Like, there's probably a lot of people that have wanted to try one and haven't ridden one, and there's just a ton of bikes in that lineup that are just on point.
Totally. 100%.
The TR11.
The DH.
The DH.
We have the Santa Cruz factory sale in full effect. All Santa Cruzes are on sale, 15 to 20% off, even all the hot new 2023s. Pretty cool.
That is pretty
All
cool.
month of March.
I think I saw a Gen 1 tall boy the other day on the trail.
We see so many of those come in here because we sold a ton of those.
Right.
I had that bike and loved it, and we sold so many. And that bike is super resilient and durable.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of those bikes out there on kind of like their third fork and second wheel set and 9th drivetrain and 20th set of brake pads. And
You know how sometimes smells take you back to places?
like an old Volkswagen.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
The sight of that, it's a black with the red lettering, red and white highlighted lettering.
The original one had that white on one side and red on the other. And then the next one had, I think, white with red outlines.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that took me back.
That bike has aged so well. I mean, even geometry-wise, like, sure, it's a little short, but...
Sure, it's a little 69 on the head angle.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's still, for a competent climbing and trail bike,
True.
it's still,
And that was slack back then.
yeah.
And
And you can throw a wolf tooth headset in it
You
and
could.
slack it back out.
And almost as light as some full suspension cross country bikes these days. Maybe.
It was shockingly light, and it's weird
The
how
frame.
durable it is.
Yeah, the frame was really light.
Yeah. Unlike the Trek Superfly, which was its competitor at the time that broke.
The new tall boy is a whole different kind of bike, and if for that ride experience, I think you'd get a Blur now, more or less.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We also have just to highlight some other kind of sale bikes. We recently lowered the Rocky Mountain Instinct A10s to 2220 and Element A10s to 1995. Killer trail bikes, good
Yep.
specs.
Yep.
And those can be shipped. And we got a bunch of 2022 Hanzos back in stock that we sold the ones we had on sale, and Kona sold us some, so we have them still on sale, like even Hanzo ESDs.
In purple.
Dude,
My first was a Kona Hanzo purple.
Oh
Nice.
My gosh,
Yeah, it was
nice.
a dope.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I love that. Love that color. Love that bike.
Yeah, the metallic purple with the gold. Like when Val brought that frame up, when I emailed her about getting her a frame, I was like, I don't know what color it's going to be. And she brought that out. I was like, oh, everyone's going to be freaking out.
He brought it home and I was like, well done.
Speaking of nostalgia and Kona, I did a lunch ride today at Oaks and I saw an original Process 111 on the trail.
Ooh.
Dude.
If that rider's listening, we can help you with your creek.
Category defining.
Yeah.
Wait, when were you riding?
Let's see. I was out there from like 11:30 to 12:30 or so.
Wow. Because I thought I saw an original Process one. Was it maroon? The maroon, like not maroon. Maybe is maroon the right color?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like almost like a Boston baked bean red.
Yes. Thank you. I struggle with describing colors. Maybe we saw the same bike. I wasn't out there, but.
One more thing on promotions. We're doing 1 year no interest for the rest of March. That's it. I promise. 12 work days that I encourage people to participate in locally. Laguna Canyon Foundation is putting these on, and you have to sign up on their website to participate. You sign up ahead of time. March 19th at 8 a.m. they're working on Lizard, and March 25th they're working on something at Santiago Oaks, and then the 23rd they're doing Old Emerald.
Oh, great. Can I just say, like, it was awesome that the trails were open on Sunday. Like, it's been raining a lot here in Southern California, so the trails have been closed. And thank you for everyone who respects that. And then Sunday, I think the trails opened Sunday. And so I got out there and I rode on Sunday afternoon. And yes, the trails were open, but there were some spots that I was thinking maybe one more day would have been good for the trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% had that thought. I rode Sunday morning and immediately like dropped into stair steps and was like, oh, this place should be closed for another day.
Yeah, one more day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I didn't feel guilty because I was riding on the trails that were open, but to me, because I live in sunny Southern California, when I get home and my bike is all muddy, I'm like, oh man, I hardly ever have to clean my bike. And, poor little rich boy, first world problems. But, yeah, it was a little unfortunate.
I hate hose washing my bike.
Your bike hates it too.
Yeah, I know. It hurts me every time, but it's been a lot of times this year.
Yeah.
It's kind of rough.
Yeah.
Do you have a process?
I just make him do it for mine.
Pretty much. Yeah, like I've got like some brushes, and I try to just use a wet rag and not spray anything that has a cartridge bearing or anything like that.
Yep.
And I look at it as like I probably hose wash my bike 2 to 3 times a year max, and the rest of the time it's just like wipe down. But still, like I just know that if I do it an extra time, it's like at a certain point I'm on borrowed time and I'm bringing it in here for bearings.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of clay in our soil content, which sticks to the tires, and we have so many people that I think if we all went riding when it's wet out, we would take the whole mountain home with us.
Oh, yeah.
That is very true.
Because we have a lot of people around here.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like peanut butter.
Yeah, and it's not good for the bike, and like Auk said, we have so many days here that are great for the bike. And
Yeah.
But that being said, Sycamore Park is the place to go ride in the rain, from what I hear. Sycamore Canyon?
Sycamore Canyon, right?
Yeah.
In Riverside, is that?
Yeah.
Thereabouts?
And some trails drain better than others.
Yep. San Juan. Locally, San Juan is another one that holds up pretty well in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has just been an interesting year, because it's obvious, but even the stuff that usually is okay is just hammered.
Yeah.
San Juan is rough. It was okay, and I think the rainstorms right after the new year, but it's like it keeps getting rougher and rougher with the...
A lot of erosion.
Yeah. It's some of that's like that man-eating rut that right before that last climb up the rock is like that thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
It's the flat pedal dragger now,
You have any other trail condition updates?
Yeah, it seems like San Clemente is heading towards back open. I think the builders, didn't you guys post on social media that the builders, like on Friday this last week, were asking people to kind of be careful down there?
It stays wet for a long time on the bottom half.
Oh, yeah, that climb back up at the bottom was rough for a couple weeks. Yeah, it was pretty bad, but...
And that mud gets stinky, too.
Yeah, it does. I'm finding that something's interesting. Like, I've been kind of complaining about how beat up and bumpy the trails have been from overuse and no rain. But it's like now I'm struggling. I think I got used to just riding with the bike crossed up and sideways and like scrubbing speed by like sliding on rocks covered in dust. And now that there's grip again, it's like I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like real confused.
Right.
It's like almost like the bike is too stable and it's like messing me up.
What's this traction stuff?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird.
Silverado Motorway is in really good. Looks like someone's been doing work out there to fill in some of the ruts on Silverado Motorway.
That trail generally drains pretty well and is pretty shaly.
Yep. And so I went on a run on Saturday and ran up to the top with my wife of 26 years today.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah.
So it's been great. Happy anniversary. Great way to celebrate with you guys
With our
with the podcast. So we went riding up there and there's poppies along the trail. The trail was in appreciate whoever's doing work out there, filling in ruts and what have you. It's great. The trail was dry. Ran into a couple people who were riding across from Black Star. So,
yeah, huge props to all the trail builders in the world.
Oh my gosh.
And maintainers and
Yeah.
advocates.
Oh, yeah. We would be SOL and not have much of a sport without them. That's for sure.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
So let's get a little bit of origin story going. Should we start with you, Eric?
Sure.
You got into the sport how long ago?
Well, like I grew up riding motos,
Yeah.
you know, my family and like racing, actually street motorcycles, and then just did like a little dirt biking on the side. And then, so I've always like ridden mountain bikes and like, you know, had like GT triple triangle bikes back in the day, you know, a Zasker along the way too.
Yeah, that was my dream bike when I started riding.
That was, yeah,
I didn't get it.
Yeah, I had it for a little bit and then eventually got stolen because that's how it works when you're a kid. But I'm from Wisconsin, so I didn't really start riding mountain bikes. I don't want to say properly, but like what I identify with mountain biking, like my current ride fantasies or so, until I moved out here in 2008.
Nice.
And then, yeah, I bought a bike that it was a GT4 side drive, and we called it the Farce because it creaked just constantly. And I came in and then was like immediately sold that bike after buying it, and then came in and bought a bike from you. And yeah, it's been kind of a history ever since.
What was that bike?
That was a Pitch Pro.
Yeah, cool bike.
Yeah, super
Oh, yeah.
underrated and kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, you want to talk about what would be a perfect bike to mullet in retrospect?
Nice. That was 26.
Yeah, 26. Yeah, definitely.
Did I do a bike fit on you on that bike?
Yes, you did.
I think that might be one of my first recollections of you, is fitting you on it.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I got to know you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that bike was great. And you guys just, yeah, that was like, I remember like walking into this shop and just being like, it was like reminded me of like the speed shops and stuff when I was a kid, you know, just motorcycle shops. Like, oh yeah, this is like home. This is kind of where I would be comfortable.
Nice.
Yeah. And so it's been, you know, kind of just a lot of, this has been my outlet, you know. I'm a weekend warrior, you know, obviously, like you said, I'm an ambassador for the shop. So I'm not in the bike industry, but just, it's like my outlet and I'm just obsessed with it. And that's how Erin ended up in the sport.
I'm a 2020 mountain bike adopter.
Wow,
Nice.
Great.
Seemed a little farcical to start riding mountain bikes at 38 years old, but I did it. And I mean, for me, it's just like getting out, you know, spending time outside and, you know, spending time with him too. Like sharing that sport's been interesting.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So your ride fantasy is a little different.
Way different. But he like when I go ride, it's like my ride and he just comes along, which is great. So like we're not trying to like meet in the middle because I mean our abilities are very different. I'm more of like I want to ride through a meadow, like you know, and he's like I want to go like straight down. So it's worked out really well.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
See, but
Surprisingly.
if I could chime in, I think when Eric rides with you, his ride fantasy is your ride fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
100% right.
Right. So it's not that he's wanting you to ride like him. It's like you said, it's you enjoying time with him, and I think like I'm a similar way. My wife doesn't ride mountain bikes, but you know, when we go out together, it's like this is the ride fantasy.
Yeah.
You know.
It's all, I never envisioned any of it. So it's like, it's all extra credit, like bonus laps for me. So, you know, I'm not connected to any one part of mountain biking. You know, I'm just as happy doing like the Ride for Wanda ride as I am, you know, going to Laguna or as I am going to the bike park.
Right.
So it's interesting, like what she wants to do overlaps with what I want to do. It's just not the same, but it's been really cool watching her kind of make the sport her own. And yeah.
2 comments on that. Those are pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And I think why you can enjoy so many of those things is you can shred signal in all of those environments.
I was a happy man when shred signaling entered my wife's vernacular, and she'd be like, "Is that guy shred signaling?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." Flannel shirt, cut off jean shorts, skate helmet, shred signaling for sure.
Everyone has their own way.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, and you know, you said 38. That's I started riding when I was 33, so you know, it's we can all jump into it at whatever time. You know, for you to take that courageous step and jump into it and start to own it is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, I didn't realize that mountain biking could be that. Like, I was just used to, like, knowing what he would do when he would go out and ride, and I was like, I'm never going to do that. Like, oh, my God. And then it just seemed so unapproachable.
Right.
And then I think what made me say I want to try a mountain bike is we were, like, at Irvine Park, just cruising, and on my crappy, what is my little commuter bike? It's like
a hybrid.
Yeah. And we like went off on some dirt, and I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like, let's get a mountain bike.
awesome.
And so he was like, okay, and of course went full on bike nerd, like built me this awesome bike. And then like it took a while to figure out how, you know, he's a great rider, so he was trying to coach me, and it took a while to figure out how to make that work without me wanting to like hurt him for like telling me what to do.
Yeah, okay, this is the good stuff right here because everyone struggles with this.
Yeah. I think he knows when I am okay with him kind of like telling me like, oh, hey, you should do this, this. And other times I'm like, just shut it.
Right.
Like, I just need to like silence. And he knows like the things that I have to work on. Like, it took me so long to get body position in the right place where I wasn't like constantly out of control sort of, you know. And I think, you know, he would ride behind me and just kind of like, you know, sight your line, like do this, like put your head up, you're looking straight down, like, you know, stuff like that. But I think if we didn't have the relationship we have, it probably would not have gone so well.
I can guarantee you that you guys have a good relationship if you can mountain bike together.
I don't want to get on a tandem with him though, I will say that.
Do you want to be on a divorce horse with me?
Yeah, no.
You guys draw the line somewhere, I guess. Yeah. It's teaching Erin is interesting. She has that. So I've done some high performance driving instruction, and you realize very quickly that there's a certain thing that people either sort of, and I hate to be so black and white, but at least there's a certain thing that people either come to the table with or some people have to learn, which is just sort of that seat of the pants of, oh, hey, the back end of this vehicle I'm in is swapping around from the front, or hey, the front is washing away. And Erin has that, you know, and even when I was first teaching her how to drive like autocross and stuff, sometimes she couldn't articulate what she was feeling, but she'd come in after a run and be like, hey, that part in the back of the track, what was that? Like, what, the car like was going away from me. What did I do? What happened? And since she has that seat of the pants feeling, it took a lot of the initial weight off of trying to, you know, she could tell when the front was pushing away. She didn't necessarily know why or what was happening, but she could tell, oh, hey, I went to that corner and then I grabbed the brakes and the bike stood up. Like, why did the bike stand up? And perfect. Let's have that conversation. But it is interesting where I think we all we're so excited. We want to just share and, you know, hey, you know, do this, don't do that, do this. And I think one of my ways of like figuring out how to teach her was that Ben Cathro How to Bike series. And just, you know, one of the things he does, you know, we've both gone to the non-dot clinic. I've done a few instruction clinics with John, and she's been a student there. The techniques they teach are great. But one of the things that I've learned from that clinic and then watching the How to Bike series is that we kind of do all this like, hey, you know, lean the bike in and, you know, do all this really complicated thought. And I'm starting to just think that it starts to just boil down into weight in your hands, weight in your feet, and, you know, how much weight can you put on your hands? When is the time? And how much weight do you have in your feet? And just focusing on that with Erin has really, I feel like that simplifies it, and how the person gets there, if their body position's a little different. I feel like as long as you know to weight the front when you're going through a corner and like get back and the time to do that, that really, and you having that seat of the pants feel really accelerated, your onboarding. But it wasn't without ups and downs. So
that's interesting. I think that's generally thought of as a more high level skill, but maybe it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like what's the crux of cornering? Like if I asked you, what's the most important part about cornering? Is it leaning the bike or is it weight in your hands?
I mean, I don't know if you can pick just one, but you sure can influence a lot of things with with where your weight center is and where the forces are going down into the bike, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it really clicked for me. Like we were at Waterworks, and just doing laps, and like I had like this epiphany moment where because I tend to be really off the back all the time, which just I was not in control at all. And then it just felt like I was so far forward, but then I could feel the stability it gave me, and then I was like, oh, I get it now. Like it was cool. I
was pushing the boundaries of our relationship that day. I may have been actually yelling a little bit.
You were.
Yeah, sorry about that. But there's a time. I mean, I think getting, whether you're going to ride with your significant other or just someone you're bringing on, I think it's important to watch that person and realize that, hey, because Erin is very deliberate. She really needs to warm up and, both her body and also her mind, and just kind of get into the zone. And, I had to kind of watch her and realize, okay, first bit of the ride, I have to leave her alone. Even if she's doing something that I think, I might get her in a little bit of trouble. She's not warmed up. She's not in the headspace. She's, and so I think you just really need to watch and just, I know it's cliche, but just to pay attention to the fact that someone else has a different way that they come into their ride than you do.
It's interesting.
What when you said you were pushing the boundary of the relationship in that one ride, and I'm sure sometimes it goes you push beyond. What does the after ride conversations look like in restoration and learning moments so you could continue to move forward?
I would say even if I have a bad ride, I'm almost always thrilled when we're done. Like, because riding mountain bikes was just such a stretch for me. Like, I don't know, I'm not a risk taker. That was like not me at all. And I mean, there were some times where like we'd ride somewhere and I'd be like, oh, that was awful. I'm like, really, like, I remember one time, I forget where we rode, and I just had a horrible ride. And he was like, you know what? Let's go over to, I don't know where we went, Peters or something, just so you can have a good 30 minutes, and then we'll go home after that. And that was like cool, because then I just rode something easy and I felt like good about it, and it kind of removed that frustration.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you've had a lot. One of the things that I've always tried to focus on is not every part of every ride is good. And sometimes it's like, hey, I carved a couple, if you've been riding for 15 years, you have good rides and you have bad rides.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just are you see these people that are like, oh, there was a hiker in the middle of this descent, my whole ride's ruined. And a ride is never one descent or one. It's like, as long as you have a good spot, a good corner or two, or you at least got a good workout, or like, it doesn't always have to be what you expected. And I think you've really embraced that of, hey, just because you had to walk down a section, it doesn't make the ride bad. Like,
I used to beat myself up about having to walk too much. Now I'm like, I'm just going to walk this part because that's just part of the day.
Right.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not always in your best headspace to push yourself or even to do something you've done before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way the sport's blown up has been awesome. But I do think that there is a rush now to get to like advanced skills or get to, and I've had to explain Erin, it's like, you're seeing the rider that I am now. Like, there are trails and features that I walked down for like 5 or 6 years. Right. Yeah.
Muttering like, I can't believe that people ride this.
Give it another 15, 20 years, you might start walking them again.
I'm not all that far. Yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah, absolutely. So it's just been cool watching her embrace the just sort of, hey, like, we keep moving forward. Like, we don't beat ourselves up. Not every corner's the best, not every ride's the best, but It's just all about the experience.
It took me forever to get there with surfing, and like I really appreciate that perspective. I think a lot of people could sit with that and have nicer lives.
Yeah.
Learn to enjoy the good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like that's what I watch my friends get burnt out on this or surfing. And I feel like that's usually one of the first couple of dominoes.
Yeah, totally. I think I had a kind of a rough ride recently where just the suspension felt harsh, that day, and the traction felt too much and not enough all the time. And there's this one spot at the bottom of San Clemente single tracks before the bridge up to the climb, and there's a little kind of off camber into a catch berm, and every time the tires just kind of go "Rup," and that happened, and I was like, all right, it's a good ride.
It's all it takes. It's the little things in life, right? Yeah. So I mean, I think we have to really kind of tell the genesis of where we ended up going with this Catalina ride to finish off your riding experience. And one of the things I was always very careful of, and you notice this when someone's starting to ride, is that everybody, even experienced riders, like focus on don't do this. Don't put your ride with your pedal down and you're going to crash. Don't do this or you're going to crash. You don't do this or you're going to crash. And we all frame it in that negative. And you've spoken about this, the positive self-talk thing.
I'm not good at that.
No, she's not very good at it for sure.
Yeah.
But of course, right when you sort of started to fall in love with the sport, you had a little setback.
Yeah. I mean, broke my 3 bones in my hand, like spiral fractured them.
Oh my gosh.
18 screws, 3 plates in my hand. Like,
That's a little setback.
yeah. I mean, it happened. I think I was off the bike for 7 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it took a long time to recover. And so then I was like, do I even want to do this anymore? Like, because it's one thing if you wreck and like skin yourself up and you can get back on the bike, but then when you're like physically can't do it for that long, it was like really hard to get back on. And I was like so scared. And it was like a fluke thing that happened. It wasn't like I was like doing something even difficult. It was just, we were riding back to the car and I just wiped out. Like it was just silly. So.
But I think
you were intimidated coming back.
Oh yeah.
And how did that go?
It was slow because, I mean, I didn't have a grip strength for a long time. So we just have to go and just do really short rides and like find places that weren't like super bumpy just because I couldn't hold on for very long. But
I think you need to take a step back. One thing, but we talked a lot about, is this sport for you before you got back on? And I was an advocate that you should consider quitting it. I didn't think you should, but it would be irresponsible to have something like that happen and not say like, do I love this enough? Like, is this for me? And I was like super proud of you for having that decision-making process and deciding to, give it another shot. Part of our discussion was, I was sort of adamant that you should consider quitting if you're not fully in love with it, but you should get back on the bike before you quit.
Yeah.
Either way. And sort of, if you were going to quit, it should be your decision on your terms.
Yeah.
Not some part of some woo-woo in the universe telling you not to do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the Catalina ride. Like, we had wanted to do it for a long time, and we were going to do it around the time when I had wrecked. And so we were like, well, I'm going to do that now. So then we kind of set this, like, goal of when we thought I'd be recovered enough to be on a bike for that long. Because it's not a technical ride at all. Like, it's fire roads, but it was, like, 30 miles that we did?
It was like we I'm sure we'll get more into it, but we did kind of the standard loop there out to the airport and to Twin Harbors and back, and I think that ends up being like 30 miles, 4,200 feet.
Is it pretty much all the way across the island?
Yeah, you can definitely go further. You can go north of Twin Harbors, and then there's like a elevated loop around Avalon you could do. So I mean, you could make it 5,036. But yeah, I mean, it's fairly, like I was telling her before we did it, she was concerned. She's like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. And I was like, well, you can do it, but just so you know, sitting on a bike for 3.5, 4 hours is, I don't care what kind of bike you're on, or that's just a lot of sitting on a bike.
So you did this in one go.
Yeah, one shot. One
Got
day.
it.
Yeah, no camping. We took the ferry over. Erin has a Orbea Rise.
What was, real quick, did you need a permit?
Yes.
Yes.
Catalina Conservancy, you have to get a tag to put on your bike to go
And you
onto.
get that online.
You get it online, but then you got to go pick up the tag like at the conservancy there, and you just put it on your handlebar.
And the tag's good for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the tag once. They hit you for the conservancy
I think it was
fee.
like $90 for 2 people, but it's for the whole year.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it.
You're
Nice.
gonna do it again? While you
Probably.
got the tag?
I want to do a bike packing trip over there.
Mm-hmm.
It is like the perfect
Yeah.
bike packing route.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to go back. I think Erin probably wants to go back too.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So did you bring kind of normal long ride gear then, not just kind of what you would bring on a long ride?
Yeah. Yeah. We both actually use the same thing. I use a Camelback Chase vest that I'm just kind of addicted to because it sits high on my back. I have some weird back stuff. So, yeah, we just kept it, pretty. I think we were both carrying 70 ounces of water. The airport, which is kind of maybe 40% of the way into the loop, is a good place. The food there is awesome.
Yeah, right.
And you can fill up water there and get drinks and all that stuff. So the good news is that you can plan on one reliable stop almost halfway into whatever you're going to do.
Because you come into, am I understanding it correct? You come into Avalon, and then the airport. I did I had the good fortune of ride assisting a friend who did a 50-mile ultramarathon run on the island, so I had a chance to pedal real slow next to him. Airport, that's on the like kind of the north side, if I could imagine. Is
Yes.
that okay? Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. So yeah, we ended up there. You're right. That is a great turnaround spot, and you know, get to take your feet up, put your feet up a little bit, and
Yeah, and it was actually part of a
recharge.
loop. So like it wasn't like an out and back to the airport. We went to the airport and then we went over to the opposite side of the island.
Yeah.
And it's
got it.
beautiful over there, like
Right.
cliffs and beach and
Beaches,
just
like-
it was really cool.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And not a lot of houses.
No,
There's nothing.
I mean, that was part of the reason I was nervous about doing because I was like, you can't turn back. Like, you don't see anybody else for very long periods of time. Sometimes you'd see like the Jeeps that come through with like tourists on it, but maybe one every 40 minutes or.
yeah, maybe a little bit less frequently than
Yeah.
that. And it's just it's true kind of wilderness feel, and there's are they buffalo or bison?
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Wow.
Is that the same thing? I don't know.
There's some.
We saw one.
Right.
Yeah.
Animals that look like a buffalo or bison, whatever
Yeah,
it is.
buffalo or
there-
bison
there
adjacent, I'm
are
not
things
sure.
like that over there, right?
And the conservancy was very clear that the buffalo do not like people on bicycles. So they're like, if they're in the road, you just need to go the other way. Because I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of idiots who are like, I'll take a selfie with a buffalo and they get,
Right.
destroyed. But
Plot twist: the buffalo are in the Sierra Club. No, but I guess those buffalo ended up there from like shooting westerns way back in the day on Catalina Island, and they're still there. It's pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
What
really
else?
cool.
What other kind? Do you see any other cool wildlife?
There's tons of foxes in that place. But other than that, I don't think there's any other big wildlife there, which is one of the reasons I want to bike pack there, because there's no mountain lions and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it was just a really gorgeous. We really lucked out, not being able to do it last year ended up being a blessing because of the rains this year. I mean, it was insanely
green?
green.
Yeah, it was so beautiful.
crazy.
Wow.
Flowers.
Yeah, flowers, just beautiful meadows. I have a feeling we saw Catalina like not many people see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there was any green when I went.
Yeah. I mean, it was like how the hills are here.
Wow.
It was gorgeous.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it definitely more of a cross country ride. I think, I just kind of Strava snooping. I think a lot of people do it on gravel bikes. I would not. There's too much washboard and broken pavement for my. I'm not of a certain age. I might be of a certain age adjacent. So yeah, I would definitely want, something like a Blur, or something like that.
What did you ride?
I had my Rise as well.
Okay, both. Erin, you were on a Rise as well.
Yeah. In retrospect, I should have ridden my pedal bike. When we ride together and she's on her Rise and I'm on my like Trans X, we're kind of the perfect speed difference. And the other difference that I didn't really think about is that about 60 or 70% of the way in, she's like kind of, even though she's on her e-bike, it's the longest ride you've ever done, and she's in a little bit of her pain cave. So if I'm on my Rise, I I should have been at the same. We were not in the same mental spot.
No.
Same level of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Wait, did you ride? I'm sorry. Did you ride? Did you say you rode your Rise?
Yeah, and
Got it.
I rode it for a different reason than the ride. I didn't want to drink downtown and ride back up to our hotel, which was like 400 feet of climbing. And so I wanted to be able to be a little tipsy and still get home without schlepping up the hill.
Nice.
Yeah, having an e-bike, even if you just go and you're not riding around the island, I mean, getting back and forth from the hotels there, if you're up on the hill, you don't want to walk up those hills. It's brutal.
Yeah, fun to ride around Avalon on an e-bike.
So you're saying you're not in the same mental space for the ride?
Yeah, when we ride together and she's on a Rise and I'm on my push bike, our pace is very different, although she smokes me on the climbs.
And I love doing it every time. Putting it in boost and just riding past and being like,
Right.
I'll see her. She'll be waiting at the top for the climb for me, and then I'll get like 10 feet within the top, and she just rolls away.
I'm like, oh, you tired?
Yeah. So, I think that really works well for us, and that was originally, why we got her a Rise. And you guys, was just lucked out, was able to get one in 2020 in a medium, which was like unthinkable. I don't really know how it happened.
And I needed to not ride a hardtail anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It was nice to learn on, but full suspension's much better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you learned to ride on it, but it can be so punishing, and you forget how. I realize people say, oh, you'll learn faster on a hardtail, but I also think that you can get more intimidated than you otherwise would.
Yeah.
I mean, modern full suspension bikes, it's easy to take that for granted, I think. So, I think that combo has worked great for us. We ride at the same pace. We're able to ride together. I'm, tongue hanging out, just sweating bullets, and she's able to, she converses with me like I'm riding with Blair. She's just talking to me. But it's been a really awesome experience, and just for me to be able to go out and get a workout and her and us to ride together at the same pace I had never imagined that would be a thing. Nice. So it's really, really cool.
So what was maybe walk us through some of the various mental states in the ride, 3.5 to 4 hours, or how long did it take, and where?
I think it was 3.5 hours
of riding.
So Erin gets out, you're doing your usual like 5 to 10 minute warm up.
Yeah, my slow warm up, which happens to be like the whole first part is just climbing.
Because you got to climb out from Avalon, you climb up. There's like a hill to get to a plateau,
like past
right?
The clock tower there,
right,
or the bell tower, and
right,
keep going. And
I think it's like 1,500 feet in 4 miles.
He was like, "You're gonna have to go a little faster than that if we're gonna get this done." And I was like, "I'm warming up. Okay, I'll get there."
Yeah, that was not a cool comment in retrospect.
Yeah. Like I mean, I've always been like that athletically. I did like endurance swimming when I was younger, so like once I get warmed up, like I could go for a long time. But like the first part is just like my heart doesn't want to do it. But yeah, so it's kind of nice pavement for the first part, and then it becomes this really awful patchy, dirt and pavement for part, and then eventually you're on just gravel, or it was not even gravel, it was just
So did you feel a little trepidation at the
roadish,
beginning, or confidence, or?
No, I mean, I was just like, hope I could, I was worried about my hand, honestly. I was like, hope I'll be able to make it through. But once we got to the airport and had lunch, like, I was like, okay, this is good.
Erin travels on her stomach, so as long as she's got good food,
and snacks,
she's here for it.
Yeah.
Nice. What'd you have?
I had like eggs and like hash browns and avocado. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
And a big chocolate chip cookie that had great cookies. Yeah. It's a great little cafe.
Yeah. I think then the wheels started to kind of come off the bus a little bit, like an hour and a half in. So that's probably like 2.5 hours of rolling time
It was
in.
after a lot of washboard, downhill washboard.
So that's probably hard on your hands.
Yeah. But like also just like so washboard, I felt like I couldn't even see. Like
it was, it was. At one point, I remember I was just going at my pace downhill, and I remember just like, I can't see anything, man. I was blurry, but this will be fun.
And he's like, go faster, it'll be not as bad.
It'll
Like,
be
I can't
better.
even see.
Also bad advice, I guess. then you rallied.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and just stopping and looking at the views was,
right.
I mean, it was great. Like we sat on this, cliff overlooking, there was like a cove down below, and it was just gorgeous. Waves crashing and flowers, and it was really cool.
I think that was their first ride though that had what I would call like some of the necessary things for every like epic ride, which is that you hit rock bottom and you get to that I don't want to do this anymore part, and then you rally.
Yeah, I think it was more to like
The third act.
yeah,
totally.
like the slog back
Yeah.
into town, just from having been sitting on the bike for so long. That
Right.
was the worst part. As soon as we got back, I was like, oh my god. But yeah, I mean, it's a really cool ride. Like I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much technical ability do you need?
Very little.
Very
You just
little.
need the endurance.
Yep. The loop goes around Avalon is a lot more baby head rutted fire roads. So I think, what you would see in some of the challenging fire roads around here, and in my opinion, I get more sketched out sometimes on fire roads than I do single track.
Sure.
And so I've heard that loop is pretty chunky. But certainly the main loop that goes up around the airport and then to Little Harbor rather, is, drivable in most every type of car. So yeah, I don't think there's much technical ability. You are not, to my knowledge, allowed to ride single track.
No.
I got yelled
There
at
is
for
no
riding
single
a small
track
part of
there.
single track. I didn't realize that
Yeah.
was the rule.
Mm-hmm.
That was not good. But yeah, so it is mostly, very
Fire road.
Yeah.
Like wider than Fire Road.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's where I think if you go north of Twin Harbors, that's when you get to some much chunkier fire road and narrower. And there are a lot of offshoots and other routes you can take on more rugged stuff. We just kind of kept it to the main and loop, and just kind of kept it to the experience. So, yeah.
You bought a range extender?
We did. I borrowed Sanjay's, but we only have one between both our bikes. And
I didn't even need it.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
it's crazy how efficient, because of her weight, she is on her bike. It's insane. Yeah, she could do the whole thing on the internal battery without issue. Whereas like if you ask me to do 4,200 feet on the internal battery on a 360 watt hour rise, I would be probably pedaling without an e-bike for the end of it.
Yeah. Well, and I wasn't even on boost the whole time. Like
So
I made sure to do trail at the beginning,
Right.
just in case.
Right.
You did use the range extender?
I did, but I wouldn't have needed to. If I'm on my e-bike and I have to ride an eco, and
Yeah.
at that, I mean, I don't know what the rise would do with the range extender and eco. I bet you close to 6,000 feet, maybe. Yeah. So I that's why I said I if it weren't for drinking at dinner and riding back to the hotel, I should have been on my push bike. I guess that was shred signaling. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So what else does everyone need to know about riding in Catalina?
It's probably a winter early season is best. And we saw a lot of people bike packing, and I wasn't jealous of looking at how heavy a bike they were pedaling on the 1,500 foot climb out of town. But what an awesome experience that would be.
Yeah. We did see a woman on a gravel bike pulling a kid, and I was like, yeah, that's hardcore.
She was hardcore.
Yeah.
Super mom.
Yeah, and you could tell was not her first rodeo
No.
with long rides and pulling her kid. She's a tough cookie.
Yeah.
Did you get some good pictures?
Yeah, and we had some awesome photos.
Maybe we could get some from you.
Absolutely.
I'd love to see some.
Yeah, it was a cool experience. I think if you're looking for a training ride that is just not anything that you would do on the mainland, and you're looking for hey, I want to do some training in a long loop and be able to bring your bike and maybe go there with your family for a weekend and still steal out for a training lap. I think that place is really cool to be able to mix it up and have that middle of nowhere see buffalo experience. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and in the winter too, Catalina's not. There was nobody there. I mean, Avalon was empty.
That's
we were there on the
so
weekend.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Because in the summer, I mean, it's packed. Like the cruise ships show up, and you're like, oh god. And
Yeah.
but I mean, we didn't need reservations. We had some good food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty
Very cool.
choice. Yeah.
And you're right. Like when you get, like, I kind of had this vision of Catalina being nothing but beautiful coastline, and you're just always feel like you're on the coast. But the interior of Catalina, it feels pretty remote, right? Where the buffalo roam. Oh, give me a home.
Totally,
You know,
yeah.
whatever. You know, who would have
Totally.
thought that'd be on Catalina? You
Yeah.
know, so I'll spare you guys. So
Yeah, and you can, off of the main loop, you can go out to a lot of vistas. And so I think next time we do that, we'll plan to go out to some of the viewpoints so you can really see these unobstructed coastal views.
what time did you start? What time did you start riding?
9?
9?
Yeah,
Yeah.
9-ish.
So would it be next time you go, could you plan this to be like an all day, instead of just trying to make it and do the ride, think like, okay, we're going to take 8 hours to do this. And how would that change your perspective?
I think we would obviously pack more snacks.
Right? Wine and cheese, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, there was a cool spot where we had debated. It's when we could see that cove. We could have ridden down to that cove, and I
got
think
it.
there was like 1 or 2 people down there just hanging out, but it was like there was nobody there.
Got it.
And like we could have done that and just hung out on the beach there for a couple
Right.
hours by ourselves, pretty much, if we wanted to.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of places where you could just stop and kind of hang out. So you could definitely make it an all-day thing.
knowing that you can do it, does it make you want to spend like an all day adventure out there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Whoa.
for sure.
I didn't see that
Eric
coming.
wants to go bike packing for what, 2 days? 3?
However many days I can get away with.
Well, you don't even need to bring food almost, because you could make it close enough to the airport side that
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
eat there
Yep.
and just bring enough to sleep.
Yep.
And then by the time you're back, you got to bring your own wine and cheese and your beer, but you know, then you're good to go with
They
all
do
your
have
meals.
beer at the airport, right?
All right,
See?
so you just need wine and cheese then.
You just need wine and cheese. The charcuterie.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities there too. I definitely want to go north of Twin Harbors next time, and then you can stop at the airport and Twin Harbors. So you could. I know there's campsites there. I don't know what the reservation situation is like,
Right.
but you could easily use that as a stopover point too. And get water and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's a lot of opportunity there to fun bike packing adventures.
Wow.
How long does the ferry ride take?
We went from Long Beach. It's like 90 minutes.
I think Long Beach actually might be a little faster.
Yeah, because it's the bigger boat.
Yeah.
But
But they serve alcohol on the boat.
yeah,
That's
So-
nice.
yeah,
yeah.
getting your bike onto the boat's fun though.
If someone is inclined to seasickness, or is that the kind of trip that could be an
On
issue?
the way back, there were some big swells.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were the type to be seasick, I think we would have been. But
It's definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
I mean, even the guys working on the boat who work there were falling over. So it was pretty.
Wow.
That was an absurdly large swell day.
It was very windy.
Yeah.
Like if we had decided to ride Saturday instead of Friday, we couldn't have. I mean, the wind gusts were like 25 miles an hour over there that day. Like it would have been miserable.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I just watched too many of those Instagram reels of big boats turning over and stuff.
Yeah. I've been on a boat that was sinking once. Well, from Wisconsin, so there's a lot of dumb boating antics that happen. And the one thing I'll say about boat sinking is as soon as they start sinking, it goes really fast. Way faster than any movie or
You're
show.
not helping.
Like it goes fast. So yeah, I wouldn't be worried about the ferry, but yeah, smaller boats. I always make sure I know where the life vests are. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
I mean, you could take a ferry from Dana Point or Newport or a Long Beach, but Long Beach is like the big boat and it runs more often.
Right.
And about how much does that cost?
I think it was like $80 a person plus like $5 for your bike.
But we got the Commodore Lounge because we wanted the
Oh, that's right.
drinks and stuff
It
like
is.
that.
I think it may be
Or
65.
one of us wanted drinks.
So yeah, and it's fun. I mean, it's just like such an adventure. Like, just taking one backpack of stuff and then, get on the boat and then you get off and ride up to the hotel. And I mean, it was not your typical weekend.
Yeah,
For sure.
Excursion.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It's just fun. Definitely something different.
So where did that get your headspace back with regards to riding and like mountain biking and what have you in your hand? And
I mean, I'm like back. I would say like I feel I'm no longer thinking why do I do this? Like I know why. Like I do it to get out and, yeah, it's a great workout, but that's not the reason I do it. I do it to just be outside and unplug and think about something, focus just on riding. And it's a mental health thing for me, really.
I feel like that ride helped you wash away the last little bit of imposter syndrome, because you've always felt a little bit like you weren't a mountain biker.
That's true.
And even though that wasn't, quote unquote, a mountain bike ride, like some people would define it, I think you got the full experience, and you did something that was really out of your comfort zone and challenging. And I feel like watching you afterwards, you finally admitted you're a mountain biker now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like the culture getting into it, because how I said earlier, in my imagination, it was Greg Menard, it doesn't have to be like that, right? Like you can go out and ride in a meadow like you want to, but also, I mean, there would be times, there was a couple times on the trails where there was some guy trying to PR something, and he'd be like, get out of my way, and run you off the trail, and that, kind of turns you off when somebody's kind of an a-hole, but I mean, I get over it, and it doesn't happen anymore. So
you're one of us now.
That's so cool.
I mean, there are people that have been riding a really long time and have done a lot of mountain bike adventures that haven't ridden Catalina like this. Mm-hmm. And seen Catalina like that. That's a great thing.
Yeah. It was a really cool experience, and watching you do something that you had kind of built up and were challenged by and conquer it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe getting that Type 2 fun stripe on the mountain bike belt.
100%.
But
getting to that point where you almost wish you hadn't done it, and then getting past that and being stoked again. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, and I would say I was only really at rock bottom for maybe 15 minutes.
That's all it takes.
Yeah. And then I was like, get it together. It's fine.
She ate some gummy bears and she was back at it.
Some gummy bears and some Pepto, and then I was fine.
That's awesome.
Well, and
just regular gummy bears or special gummy
bears?
The
Haribo sour ones. That's the only ones that exist.
Not the special ones.
Oh, well,
I can't wait to get my
maybe after the ride there were some of those.
I can't wait to get my braces off so I can eat gummy bears again.
Oh.
Yeah, but
how long?
I found out today it might be less than a month.
Congratulations.
Holy crap.
Thank you. Yeah, next week or 2 weeks from now, I'll get the permanent retainers on the front 4 teeth, and then the following 2 weeks, I think I'll get them off.
Dude, empty nester braces off. Talk about a red letter year for
right.
Auk.
It has been
Renaissance man.
Yeah.
But I was going to say this. Don't let anyone tell you that I am super glad, and we all have these moments where we embrace or maybe more closely identify with the mountain bike culture, whether it be a Catalina ride or what have you. But don't let anyone take away from you that even before this you were far steeped and part of the mountain bike community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Told you.
Yeah.
So, So you got into mountain bike later. You said
more recently.
More recently, I should say.
During the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. More recently. What did you do for outdoorsy, or did you do outdoorsy things? Did you play sports? You said you were an endurance swimmer when you were younger.
I was a swimmer and a dancer when I was younger, and then I'm a Pilates fanatic. I go 3 times a week.
That's fantastic.
Highly recommend it, by the way.
Yes.
It's really great.
Makes you a better rider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I we did a lot of hiking and things like that.
Great.
But now that I ride, the thought of hiking sounds terrible. I'm like, when I see people hiking up Mustard, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm just, I grew up on a farm, so open spaces for me are amazing. So I just like to go out and be in the quiet, and
hence the meadow.
The meadow, exactly.
Maybe the farm in the meadow.
Where was the farm?
In Indiana, northern Indiana. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What kind of farm?
We had cattle and grew corn and soybeans, and
folks still back there.
Our family farm is still there.
Nice.
It's my uncle running it now, but yeah.
You mentioned that's kind of like a mental health thing for you. comfortable talking about that more?
Yeah. I have kind of generalized anxiety. And so, like, I would even sometimes get panic attacks when riding, and kind of like overcoming that really helped me. Like, that doesn't really happen to me anymore when we ride, I don't think. And, you know, it kind of helped me overall, because I kind of feel like when you're on the bike and you're like, I get wound up and whatever, it's like I have to calm myself down. And I got better at doing that in these like weird circumstances where like you can't just leave, right? You're like on a trail somewhere, you have to get back, so you kind of have to like figure it out. And that's another reason why I really like having an e-bike, because sometimes when I would amp my heart rate, that would just be like not good, right?
Yeah.
For me. So being able to put it in boost mode and just kind of like chill, like that's great.
Yep.
Yeah,
I can totally relate. I have also had panic attacks in my life, and riding does seem to help.
Yeah.
I would look at her heart rate data sometimes, and it would be like, whoa, you were like, we were stopped, and your heart rate was just like 195 for like 3 minutes straight.
Wow.
And that was when she was riding her hardtail, and it was, okay, this is a little bit beyond this might be healthy for you. Like, this is kind of a little rough, you know? But yeah, just watching you, I feel like it's given you like a tool set that you use now, even when you're not on the bike.
Yeah, for sure.
My therapist says that bilateral stimulation helps, and that just moving your legs back and like one and the other helps, and obviously exercise, and then focusing, and that kind of practice kind of redirecting yourself, and
Yeah.
And kind of quieting your mind, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think there's like this notion that like if you're on an e-bike, you're not getting a workout. That is not true.
Totally not.
Like you just have more control over how much of a workout you want to be having.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, when I throw my leg over a bike to go, like it's not with the goal of like, I'm going to go, you know, this many miles and get my heart rate up to this and be in zone 5. And, you know, like it's not about that for me. I mean, that's a great part of it, but I'm more in control of how I'm feeling. I can put it in boost and pass him on a hill, you know.
Right. That's one of the mechanisms.
It's interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong. When we were talking earlier about kind of getting warmed up and the slow starts, one of the things that was on my mind was this idea of kind of like getting into the flow state or getting into the zone as part of that. Is that kind of accurate, would you say?
I would, yeah.
And I think, Eric, maybe when you said that happens quickly for you, what I thought was you have a lot of practice getting into the zone, getting into a flow state. So your body and your mind are used to that. They take the cue and they do it more quickly. But also going back to the whole kind of mental health aspect, I really feel like that kind of flow state is like, for me, the opposite of a panic attack. Like,
Yeah.
so
I didn't think about it that way, but that is totally, you know, you're singularly focused and you're like, everything sort of makes sense.
you're 100% in the moment.
Yeah.
You're really there. You feel your body. You're kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. 100% present. I think it's like you're exactly right about that.
I do find like even now when I ride with many different people, you know, likes of your husband or likes of Tani, I find myself even now as I'm following people, as I'm following talented riders, that I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and I find it hard to get my mental state like kind of under control and not feel that like amped up anxiety. Like, and I can really feel like on descents and climbing after people. It's like, man, this is such a weird, this is a discomforting space to be. And so like on top of, for yourself, having generalized anxiety, being new to a sport and trying to be like catching up to someone both on the ups or being in front of somebody and having that same like feeling pushed sensation. Yeah, so that's you know, I can appreciate your thoughts on how you are overcoming that and actually turning this whole thing into a positive.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we when we started, it was actually sometimes hard to coach Erin because and this is one of the things, like the sport is so tough. I mean, physically demanding, mentally taxing, and it's hard to teach someone when they are at their physical max. When her heart rate's at 190, she's not going to intake information.
Yeah. Right.
None of us are going to. And it has been nice to be able to slow down and use, say what you will about e-bikes, but being able to use that and choose when you're removing that from the equation to still be able to teach and stuff. That has really accelerated, I think, the my ability to kind of show you things and not have you totally tapped when we're trying to talk about, when there's this loose terrain, pick your line. And, if you're just like trying to focus on not passing out, that just becomes a totally different ballgame,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and like what you said about when there's other people around you, like when we're going past hikers or navigating and I know there's a pack of riders coming behind me and I need to get out of the way or whatever, like that used to just completely mess me up. I just would have to stop and be like, go ahead and wait for everybody to clear out.
Right.
And now I'm like, no, I can ride around them. It's fine. Like it, trying to have good interactions with other people on the trail is important, I think, for the sport too.
I think so too.
Yes.
And I think I've noticed there's a little bit of a theme as you've gotten more used to it, you feel more, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, more a sense of ownership of your part of the trail.
Yep.
Less like you're on someone else's trail. And I think that's a good thing for us all to sit with. And as new riders, as you get into the sport, I think it's a good thing to think about is, hey, it's your trail too. If you, no matter how new of a rider you are, right? Like it's not someone else's trail. Right?
Yeah.
And to like other people who are great riders, like, and you come up on somebody who's, clearly a beginner or having a tough time, just give them some space, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't just be like, get out of my way. I mean, there's been a couple instances where that happened. I'm just like, that didn't need to go down like that. Like that was kind of crappy.
That's unfortunate.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think even just separating that, because those are just bad apples.
Right.
It's important to acknowledge, but I do think that even as an advanced rider, you just forget about proximity and how nervous that could make someone else versus us,
And I think most real advanced riders understand that that's not shred signaling. And so to those intermediate riders out there that think that's shred signaling, it's not.
It's not at all. Yeah,
Right?
that's how you get your sport to not be as inclusive as it could be. Yeah, for sure. But not to say the positives, and it's just been an amazing experience, I think, for both of us. And it's just bring it full circle. It's certainly exceeded what I ever thought we were ever going to do.
And I'll say this too. I mean, like people who are enjoying time with beginners or riding, alongside is that it's not even charity. It's just recognizing that we have all been in that space. No matter how advanced you are, we have all been in that space. And for me, I've been really fortunate to have a lot of really positive people who are extremely talented riders. And at the whole time I ride with them, never make me feel like, oh, we're waiting for you, or, we're just being charitable to you. But I do sense that, like, oh, this is great that they enjoy, like, this is part of their ride fantasy, is enjoying the time with me as a developing rider. And so that, hopefully more and more people recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, we have another couple we ride with, Ian and Avery, and it's, Ian and Avery.
Yeah. I didn't know you guys all rode together.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Ian used to work here.
Yeah, we've been, we ride with them sometimes,
great.
and it's just great. Like, it's just a different dynamic to do that. And
Wow.
Yeah.
What a fantasy.
Yeah. It is 100%. Yeah. I didn't know this was one of my ride fantasies, but it is definitely one of my ride fantasies.
That's awesome. Yeah,
except
really
Ian
like
always
that.
wants to do like death march climbs though. So
You got to watch out for Ian's route planning.
He's still a Marine at heart.
Yep. Totally.
So, Erin, what do we say to women to encourage them to join us in the sport? Because that's what we want to do, is we want to encourage more people to have the experience that you've had or something like that.
yeah, I mean, I think it's helping them understand that it's not, the X Games or like some extreme thing. Because in my head, that's why it felt unapproachable to me. That it can be whatever you want it to be. And I think helping people understand, like, there's no judgment. I think that's important. And it goes without saying, but like getting a bike that fits you right and is comfortable, like that's because I mean, if you're on a bike that doesn't fit you, you're never going to like it.
The Path was instrumental in helping get the right saddle for Erin.
Kim fit me for like a saddle and like.
Yeah, and even dialing into, the Silverado that you're on is the right width, but it doesn't have the flare up that might help. And so, switching her to a Volt and just certain like little things like that, I think we're game changing and having that perspective at the shop. So I can't give that perspective for Erin. I don't know what her anatomy is like. I do, but not in this context. But I'm just saying, I don't know. Like, I can't relate. I can't give advice. All I know is what I learned from you in a brief fit session, and it doesn't apply to what she's trying to do. And if I do, then I'm just mansplaining it. So
What saddle did you get?
I don't even know.
She's a Volt in the narrower, I think a 135 mil width.
Got it.
Yeah, but dialing in on the width of the saddle and the flare up, she really had a lot of discomfort from the Silverado.
Right.
And then just swapping really changed
It's just,
it.
it's unbearable, right? Like,
Yeah.
But I think people who are new to the sport probably don't even know that there are different kinds of seats.
Right.
Or that it's not supposed to hurt, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a thing. And I think that it can get a little complicated because the first couple rides, if you're new to the sport, are going to hurt.
Right.
But then it shouldn't keep hurting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe bike seats aren't comfortable, but they should not be uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially after you get past that initial saddle soreness.
Yeah. It was funny too, because, also having that perspective at the shop too, I was speccing out parts and kind of robbing parts from other bikes, and Val asked me, she's like, so what drivetrain are you putting on it? I was like, oh yeah, I just have like an 11-speed drivetrain. She kind of paused and was like, so do you ride 11-speed on your bikes? And I was like, no. And she's like, why are you putting 11-speed on your wife's bike? I was like, right. Got it. I'll take a GX Eagle group set then. I think just having that sounding board of, I think we as bike addicts and just have parts bins like, oh yeah, I'll just scab together this bike for my wife based off of parts. And Val kind of gave me the perspective of, don't put her on anything that you wouldn't otherwise ride yourself.
Yeah. I was going to ask that, like, that experience of your first bike was the
Hanzo.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Great. And so, what was the experience of having a quality bike? Like sometimes I see people get like a Walmart bike or something like that. And
Yeah. I mean, it's night and day, right? I mean, there's a reason that they cost as much as they do because they are better.
right.
And I remember talking to someone I work with and she was, getting into mountain biking. She lives out on the East Coast and she's like, so should I just get a Walmart bike? And I was like, no. I was like, you're never going to enjoy that if you get a Walmart bike and it'll probably just break anyways.
Right.
But yeah, having a good bike. And I will never forget the first time I rode the Rise in the medium. And I was like, it just the geometry of that bike is so good for me. Like
Right.
it was just so comfortable. And I rode it through the parking lot. I was like, buy it.
Done.
Let's go. I'm ready.
I think the other thing too is I'm a little bit like this, so I'm not going to claim like you have a vanity thing, but I sort of really need to want to look at and like the bikes that I'm riding and just kind of think that they're like sculpture in a certain way. And I think that I watch you. I catch her staring at her bike in the garage like I do.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right.
You are one of us.
She just goes up to it and she's like,
sick.
The
Isn't it?
PK squeeze. You're
Grab
like,
the
you
levers
grab
and
the
stuff.
lever.
Oh, yeah. If you squeeze your brake levers when you walk by your bike in the garage, you're for sure you're hooked.
Yeah. But like back to what you asked about what do you tell women? I mean, I think it's not just a man's sport. Like it's a sport for everybody. Get out there, try it, and I think you guys are taking the right approach. Like you have all the great like women's merch here and like you really are trying to like make it, some bike stores to go to, there's like 3 jerseys and a pair of shorts in women's, and it's like, okay, like that's not fun. So yeah, and in your women's rides on Wednesdays and
Thanks.
yeah.
What about the fathers and husbands and stuff? What do we tell them to make it an easier transition for the women who are getting into riding?
Besides, don't make them ride 11 speed.
Get them good gear.
Yeah, get them good gear. And like let it be their ride. Let them kind of say, this is what I like to do, this is what I don't like to do. Like I I don't want to go anywhere super exposed. I hate it. And so like he doesn't take me places like that, right? I mean, I might be missing out on some things because of that, but if I can't.
No, they're advanced riders who don't like exposure.
Yeah. And so just let it be their ride and just come along for fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to make it a safe space. There's a time for a little bit of pressure to push your limits, but there's also a time for, if I pick a route and it has something she doesn't like on it, I'm going to walk her bike down if it's sketchy,
With a smile.
Yeah, exactly. And just
Right.
make sure that there's always that sort of aspect of just, hey, we move forward. Whether we're riding the bike or walking the bike, it doesn't matter. We move forward, and it's totally fun.
And don't beat yourself up for walking your bike.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. I was so bad about that at the beginning. I'm like, oh, I can't do anything. I walked. It's like,
You got to realize, like Maxwell says, all great bike rides have at least one hike-a-bike.
Amen.
Yeah. I think there's a subtext to this conversation of self-kindness, which is not easy for anyone and something we can all practice a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just how to be nice to ourselves.
Totally. Yeah. You're definitely going to do more with yourself by, not digging in and beating yourself up and just saying, yeah, I'm going to try that next time, instead of, God, why did I not do that?
Yeah.
and in my head, I'm always picturing myself falling or wrecking. And he's like, stop. Like, imagine yourself, going through the corner and like, having to like retrain my brain. Cause again, I'm not a risk taker. That's not.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason it takes me a while to warm up, because I have to accept that I'm doing something
Risky.
that my lizard brain is like, you maybe shouldn't do this. And then I get kind of in the zone, and then it's better.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
We're getting pretty close to our normal time. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up or talk about?
No. Bikes are awesome.
Bikes
You guys
are
do
awesome.
a great job of, I think the way you sell bikes and approach people on it, of like, what's your ride fantasy, is like something that I started with her, of just like, hey, what is it that you see in your head, and start there. Like, don't get drowned out by the gear or anything. Just like, when you close your eyes, what do you see? And like, that's, I think, the starting point.
There really are a lot of potential ride fantasies with mountain biking, and a lot of us share a lot of them too. Like, I mean, one of mine is riding peacefully through a meadow. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Auk, anything else from you?
I appreciate both of you being part of our tribe.
100%. Sweet.
On this podcast, in our lives, in our rides. Thank you for being part of our tribe. This is great. Thank you for coming on.
Thank
Yep.
you for having open arms. That's good.
Sweet.
All right. Thank you, Auk. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Erin. Thanks, Jake. Thanks to all the listeners and riders out there and the staff at the Path. And let's all remember to love the bike we ride.